Greetings and welcome to Flanigan's Ecologic. I am your host, Ted Flanigan, and today I've got Amanda Begley on the podcast. Excited to have her on the podcast. She is the Associate Director of Watershed Health at TreePeople, one of my favorite nonprofits here in Los Angeles. I served on the board some years ago. Very proud of what TreePeople has done, I think, in their 52-year history. Literally planted millions of trees in LA. And this whole notion of watershed health is what I really want to talk to Amanda about. Amanda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, thank you for being on. And I'll always sort of start out, where are you today? Are you in LA as we speak?
I am in LA. Yep. In my apartment.
Very good. And what are you working on this week? What's hot this week in your work world?
What's hot this week? Yesterday, I was at the Safe Clean Water Program Scientific Symposium that was held at Public Works headquarters in Alhambra. We also had a staff lunch welcoming our new CEO to TreePeople. TreePeople just got a new CEO, Dr. Cassie Rouser. So that was also very exciting.
Oh, that is great. Okay, so now I've introduced you, Associate Director of Watershed Health. You're the Watershed Coordinator for LA County Safe, the Clean Water Program for the Santa Clara Watershed. As I said in my notes to you, let's unpack this. What is a Watershed Coordinator?
Yes, so much to unpack with my title there. But yes, a watershed coordinator is someone that works across jurisdiction, right? A watershed, let's start with that. What is a watershed? It's a common area of land that drains to a body of water, like the Pacific Ocean in most cases where we are. But it's a way to think about our basin of relations, of everything that's happening, the trees, the soil, the water, the people, all the activities. And part of LA County Measure W, the Safe Clean Water Program, they divided LA into 9 sub-watersheds and assigned a coordinator to each. And what do we do as watershed coordinator? We work as project guide, number 1. How do you access this funding, which I guess we'll get into in a second. And 2, educator. What is a watershed? What is stormwater? And then 3, acting as a connector between community, what their needs are, what the elected officials are concerned about, agencies, schools, groups, all of that. Kind of be the person that's going between, talking to everyone, and trying to develop projects that are good for our water supply and water quality.
That's a huge role.
Right?
I think you should be run for president.
Thank you. It's always tricky to explain quickly because there is a lot to it.
There is a lot to it. But how many watersheds do we have here in LA County? You said 9?
So they divided LA County into 9 sub-watersheds and assigned coordinators to each. Some of them are really large, like Upper LA River. So they have 3 watershed coordinators. And so that's based on population size and how much hardscape, how much pavement, how much concrete they have in their particular watershed.
Right. So now some people would say, okay, TreePeople. We're familiar with Andy Lipkis, who founded it in 1973. Yes. And his whole mission was planting trees to cut pollution. But TreePeople has really pivoted towards focusing on water and watersheds, right?
Well, yeah, and that was really key to Andy's message all these years, is he really talked about the system of functioning community forest. How do the trees and the water and the soil and the people all interact together? You know, we can look out in nature. We talk about the cycles of nature, how in our urban environment have some of those cycles been severed, and how can we heal them? How can we help nature heal our city is a tagline TreePeople has had. But yeah, exactly that. Water is integral to making trees grow and to get that shade that is helping us be cooled on these extreme hot days. So it's really part of the whole story.
Right. And then just sort of give me geographically. I mean, here I'm in Glendale. Am I in your watershed? Are you my coordinator?
I am not your coordinator, unfortunately. I serve in the Santa Clara River watershed. So that is the area north of the Santa Susana Mountains. So if you're going up I-5 and you're going up before you dip into Santa Clarita, that water drop that falls kind of at the top of the 5, going down towards Santa Clarita and Magic Mountain, eventually makes its way out to the coast in Ventura. So basically from the LA County line, north of the Santa Susana Mountains, kind of out towards the Antelope Valley, that whole area is where I serve as the watershed coordinator. So the city
Why would TreePeople have that project area Why would you be focused on that project area?
Yeah, very good question. So, these were open to put forward proposals to get these jobs, and TreePeople applied to the Santa Clara River because we've been doing work in the upper watershed for many years. We do mountain restoration, conservation work in the Angeles National Forest up in San Francisco Canyon, which is that part of the Angeles right outside of Santa Clarita. So we're doing that repair in the upper watershed, often after fires come through and really kind of disrupt the soil and the natural plant kingdom. Invasives move in. So we do work with volunteers. We're up there every week and have been for years, removing mustard and replanting the native plant community, kind of restoring the biological function of that land. And then, less debris flows. So more water can stay in the system. That can help with water supply. It can help with water quality issues. And that's really what is behind. Those are the goals of the Safe Clean Water program. Improved water supply, improved water quality, and bringing some sort of community enhancement benefit. And that's different for each of the unique 9 watersheds of LA County, what that community benefit looks like for each region.
So you're really using that region or that watershed to demonstrate the multiple benefits of what you're doing in that area, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the program in particular, the Safe Clean Water program, is focused really on stormwater multi-benefit projects. So they often look like not completely, but a lot of them look like new park space, right? How can we, or redeveloped park space, or, green streets, if you're familiar with what that is, green alleys, but a way, basically, how can we get there to be less concrete, less hardscape, and let water that falls here naturally be able to soak into the ground, refill our local water savings accounts, our aquifers, our groundwater, and get cleaned up in that process of moving through the soil.
A lot of our listeners don't live in LA or California. We've
Yeah.
got people all over the country and in different parts of the world, and they probably think there's not a whole lot of water in LA
Right.
to work with. But I think you would say that that's all the more reason water is very precious, and we have a history of just channeling water when it does rain, and we get too much at one time, channeling that water and it just goes off to the ocean, right? So is that really the intent, is to keep it in the watershed?
Exactly. There's this, when it rains just 1 inch in just the city of Los Angeles, that equals 3.5 billion gallons of water we send polluted to the Pacific Ocean. And now we create this problem of, our oceans getting polluted, and we have issues of drought and, water scarcity. How about we let the water soak back down into the ground like the water cycle has been doing forever, right? And that's part of really the issue, is the urbanization. We covered so much of the land, so much of the watershed, so much of the soil in road and concrete and all of that. And now we have this phenomena called storm water pollution, which is rainwater that hits our urban streets and mixes with things like motor oil or brake dust from cars or dog waste. So what are these various interventions we can do? Removing concrete, putting soil and plants and trees in, and helping that can improve water quality just by that natural process of water moving through vegetated soil.
It's really perverse, isn't it? That when we have a big storm here, the surfers can't surf, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just the water is too polluted in our ocean. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you see those photos after what they call the first flush, after it hasn't rained in many months. And, the city is beautifully piped for flood control, but that single issue, like get the water away from our houses, get them out of the roads, channelized into the now paved LA River, and whisk it as quickly out to the ocean, which was good in the sense of just flood control. But now, we've kind of learned what did we lose by just being focused on that? What can we gain by thinking of multiple benefits and how we can let water, percolate?
Yeah. You mentioned green streets as a contrast, I guess, to hardscapes. Talk a little bit about green streets. I know a little bit. Understand primarily the purpose is perking water down into the soil, but talk a little bit more about green streets.
Yeah. And so there's a variety of what they can look like. But basically, we do need roads, we need some infrastructure, but
Yeah.
how can we design them a little better to provide, again, these kind of multiple benefits? They can be things as simple as, notches maybe in the curb where stormwater, when it does rain, can flow into maybe a vegetated tree well. Like you'll see them maybe sunk a little into the ground, like a
Mm.
area with soil and a tree. And then that stormwater, instead of it just rushing down the city street, which we've all seen in rain events, those flooded streets, little notches in the curb so the water can flow in and water probably a thirsty tree, give us more shade, all of those great things, cool our city. Permeable pavement, maybe not on a road where cars are, but on the sidewalk areas or places that are getting less heavy traffic. They can look like a porous material, a paved material, but they can be porous so the water can soak through. That could be an element of a green street. Also, this concept of complete streets, if we're already going to be doing things like redesigning the street to be more mindful of stormwater, can we add, protected bike lanes and
Mm.
better facilities for pedestrians or people taking public transit? So those things can all be wrapped up in the notion of a green street. But yeah, and so that's what's great, is that this funding for Safe Clean Water program can be used for those types of projects.
To demonstrate. And who opposes this, or is it just the course of history is your opposition?
Yeah, I think it was just, kind of that business as usual thinking,
Yeah.
concrete was the answer to all the problems for a
Yeah.
long time, but we didn't really realize, and they were solving real problems, right? The
Oh yeah.
Great Flood of 1938 that led to the paving of the LA River, lots of people died and homes and businesses were lost. Like that's not a good thing. But what have we learned since then? Did we maybe build in the floodplain, which wasn't maybe the best place to put a lot of homes and businesses and people? But now the city is built up the way that it is. Like, how can we do interventions in all the areas surrounding there and let reduce the flows that are going down into the channel and going into these places? And we've learned a lot about, okay, wait, nature knows what it's doing and doing all these things, providing clean air, cooling the city, providing clean water. So how can we bring those elements into our urban environment more and more? And I think we've really, Measure W, the Safe Clean Water program, was voted by LA County voters in 2018. So that was something that over 2/3 of folks
Really.
living in the LA County region voted to tax themselves 2.5 cent parcel tax on how much hardscape they have on their property. So that says a lot. 2/3 of people said, hey, you know what? It's worth it to spend this little bit of money to go into this fund. There's no sunset on Measure W. So this program is going to be around for a long time. It's $280 million every year, dedicated funding to fund these multi-benefit stormwater projects that improve water supply, water quality, and bring some sort of community enhancement feature, like a new park, a renovated park, a green street, things like that. Green schools, plant trees, do
Yeah.
all those things.
Well, you and your colleagues must have done a great job to get the public, to 2/3 of the public, to tax themselves to address water issues, right? And
Yes.
that's phenomenal. That
Yeah.
really,
It's really
congratulations.
forward thinking. And there's also, like the event I went to yesterday at Public Works, there's also a set aside of a certain amount of that money to fund scientific studies that get at
Mm.
these issues and kind of learn more. How can we do these techniques better? How can we make a rain garden that is the most optimal for the storms and the pollutants that we deal with here? How does street sweeping play into all of this? All kinds of different studies where they're really kind of trying to
Yeah.
drill in, which is an amazing thing to have this dedicated funding in our region for these issues.
Is that uncommon for other cities, other counties?
Yeah, it was brought up at the event yesterday that this is, we're a national leader in the sense of how much money we're setting aside. You think
Mm.
about funding cuts that are happening at the federal level, or
Sure.
even with state budget concerns and all of this. Like, this is dedicated. The county has committed to this. Again, it's not like, oh, it ends in 5 years or 2 years. There is no sunset. So the Safe Clean Water program is going to be around for a long time. time. And because it's still fairly new, right? It just passed in 2018.
Hmm.
It takes a minute for projects to get designed and built. We're now seeing ribbon cuttings, and these projects are coming to a neighborhood near you. So
Yeah.
people become more and more familiar with them. And then all the jobs, right? For young people to be aware, like, what is a stormwater best management practice? How do you design these? How do you engineer them? How do you maintain them? So that's also exciting too, is that it's going to be a job creator for our region.
Yeah, fantastic. You mentioned something about the percentage of a hardscape on a home, but I wanted to ask the question, what can a typical homeowner do to help the situation? I mean, I have a property here. I haven't put in bioswales or anything like that, but what can homeowners do to be part of the solution?
Yeah, a simple one often is, where is your downspout going right now? A lot of
Yeah.
times downspouts are just being directed, again, getting that water away from your house as quick as possible, which makes sense. You want that.
Yep.
But a
Yep.
lot of times it's just going maybe out to a driveway and then right out to the storm drain that's ending up down into the ocean. Can you redirect it with like a kind of a small piece of a downspout diverter from
Yeah.
a Home Depot or Lowe's or something, and just put it into a vegetated area where there's a tree or there's a garden or somewhere where there's soil and vegetation? Like, that small thing, it's not an expensive intervention, can really help. We're about to get rain over these next several days. We'll probably get quite a bit. How can
Yep.
that'll remove the flows going out to the ocean, and also give some thirsty water to that large water tank of the soil and the trees that can be using it, right? The roots of a tree can hold a tremendous amount of water and then provide that shade and home for the birds and the butterflies and all that good stuff.
Yeah. The last house that we had, the whole backyard was cemented in.
Yes.
And I said, "Oh my God, I like trees, I like grass, whatever."
Yeah.
Uh, So I went out and rented a jackhammer, which is a huge project. The cement was yay thick. I mean, it was like I had to rent this huge dumpster, and
Yeah.
I had a crew of people out there tearing up all this concrete. But we have a history here of
Yes.
people just cementing over
Right.
large areas of backyards, which I guess they don't like bugs, or they don't like trees, or they don't like nature, or something like that. But now I think you were saying that you're taxed based on the amount of hardscape, the
Yeah.
percentage of hardscape. So it's going against your financial interest to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, good on you on making that effort, right? And because that's like the big one, is how can you remove the hardscape in your
Yeah.
yard? The downspout diverter is a relatively low hanging fruit in the grand
Right.
scheme of things. But if we can do that, it's a big difference, right? Think of all the parcels around LA County, residential homes, that have concrete on them and are adding to this, water pollution going out to the ocean and decreasing the amount of water we have available locally. The other thing that just bums me out too is, I think a
Yeah.
lot of folks did this because they thought they were doing the right thing, in the sense of water restrictions, right? Drought, use less water, get rid of your thirsty lawn. Okay, what
Oh,
would be easier is if I just put concrete in my backyard. That's not grass that's going to take water. But again, that's that single solution versus the kind of multiple benefits of nature, of what that can provide. Those landscapes are going to be warmer. It's going to be more hot on these extreme heat days. So you're going to have to turn your air conditioning up, which means your bill's going to go up. And,
yeah.
the way that there's kind of this cascading effects, when you're not thinking of the full cost of these systems and these interventions.
Yeah, I have a friend whose backyard is cemented in. He and his wife cemented it in, and they
Right.
keep their dogs out there.
Ooh,
And I
yeah.
just thought, oh my God, it's just so hot but it's easier to clean up the poop, I guess,
Right.
was the thing. But like you said, some of it was done with all the best intentions. Well, what would be the best landscaping to put in for a
Yeah,
homeowner?
now native plants. These are plants that have evolved to live in this unique Mediterranean semi-arid climate. So they've evolved to deal with our long, hot summers. They and get most of the water during the winter time. They're great home for our local pollinators and food source. It's part of that concept of biodiversity or habitat creation. Like, we're part of a living system. There is a sense of place here, right? We are a part of something. It's not just all grass and palm trees, despite our best efforts, right?
This is not Disneyland. This is not all Disneyland.
It's not all Disneyland. We got a little bit of it. I get that, but how can we bring back? It's beautiful. The native plants here are beautiful, and and they don't take much care, right? They don't take much maintenance. Even if you're just looking at it from a cost perspective, you're going to be using less water. There's less maintenance. It takes a couple years to get them established, and then you can step back. They're used to living here out in the mountains where no one's tending to them. The maintenance is very low, so it's a good thing.
So if somebody does convert their backyard to being xeriscaped and maybe a permeable driveway material, whatever, do they pay less taxes then?
Yeah, they do, right? So it's 2.5 cents per square foot. So it's not a huge amount, and the fact that that's going to be maybe the motivator, although ultimately, yes, we hope so. But yeah, you'll pay less on that parcel tax. Yeah.
How did you get into this aspect of what TreePeople does? I mean, TreePeople, as I mentioned earlier, long history of planting trees, great, incredible works. Andy, really, and your whole team is to be congratulated with success. But what attracted you to be doing this kind of work?
Yeah. So growing up in a household where my dad really made sure we knew where our water comes from and where our electricity comes from, and it's not just magic. There is a cost to these systems. There is a place that is getting impacted by us using whether it's water or energy or transportation or whatever it may be. And the water story just always, boggled my mind, when he really tried to explain to me how far away, we have been, water travels to come to our house. And then this flip side of like, hey, I like to go to the beach. I like to swim in the ocean, and I can't go swimming on the days when it's rained because all of this pollution's ending up down there, and the water's not soaking down into the ground. Our local water sources are not being valued the way they should be, right? And then this notion that the more that we capture water and the more that we plant native plants and trees, the better it is for all of us. The more shade there is, the mood improvements when you're out in nature, all of these things, having more birds in the neighborhood, it's like, it's just this kind of cascading a better air quality, right? All of these things. So it's like, wait a minute, doing the right thing is better for all of us. And there's so much room for improvement. That's exciting. I feel like there's a lot of issues out there where you can be kind of overwhelmed. Like, what do I do? And how do I confront this? But there's a lot we can be doing here in this space. And it's fun. TreePeople has volunteer events every week where you can go out there and plant trees or do restoration up in the mountains, and you meet other folks that are excited to be out there and help their neighborhood, help their community, and it's joyful, it's fun, and you feel like you have agency, and one day you can see a difference that you made, and that's a profound wonderful thing.
It is a wonderful thing.
Always. What?
And like you said, it's just so logical.
Right.
Why wouldn't we do this? Knowing what we know at this point, right?
Yes, exactly.
And are you seeing enough progress to keep you in the game?
Definitely. Measure W, Safe Clean Water program, where I spend the bulk of my time these days, is just really exciting. We vote for something and then it's like, hey, what happened to that? But then this concept of something that was Measure W to implementation, this complex governance structure, and how do we allocate and have there be public input on how $280 million is spent every year, another $280 million coming in. That's really exciting. And they wrote into the ordinance adaptive management, which means every 2 years we have to take stock. Are we true to what we told the voters we were going to do? How can we improve the program? How can we refine it? How can we do better? And the folks at Public Works that we work with, the other watershed coordinators, the folks that sit on the governing boards of the 9 WASPs, like, everyone really cares and is trying to do the best. And it's inspiring to see this program come to be.
And you said this a couple of times, that the public works is really engaged with you in this process.
Yeah, they manage it, right? So the
Yeah.
flood control district at Public Works, they are the ones who get the tax allocation, and then they administer it. They've done a tremendous job, really, to set this up. It's complicated, all of this, right?
It is. It is.
Um, yeah, and to keep it running smoothly, we've started a new phase of the program that's really exciting with this watershed planning phase. So anyone can go on to the Safe Clean Water Program website and see the watershed plan for your particular watershed or others. And the reason for this is, how can we be very proactive about what the best projects will be? How can we use this investment from the public
Yeah.
in the greatest opportunity areas? Where can it capture the most water, clean it up to the best, bring green spaces where there aren't enough, all of these things. So this kind of mapping effort
Yeah.
that will be continual is also really exciting.
Sounds really well thought out. This whole notion of best practices and demonstrations. If you had somebody coming in from another city or another country and was visiting LA and really wanted to focus on watershed management, where would you take them? What would you show them?
I would show them the Southgate Urban Orchard Park that just opened up a few months ago, because it's in an area that is by a freeway. There's transmission lines. It's near the LA River. It seems very industrial, right? An area that maybe could get left behind with
Yeah.
funding. They have
Yeah.
created this oasis there. There is a kind of a engineered waterway wetland that's taking water from the Bimini channel off of the LA River, cleaning it up before it, so it's not going out to the ocean. There's a literal avocado orchard, a citrus orchard, community gardens, native plants and trails, a beautiful play area for kids, inspired by local Tongva tribal partners that help design some play elements that are speaking to that indigenous past and present of the tribes that are here in our region. And it just was really well done. And you kind of all of a sudden, you're like, you forget where you are. And we can do this. We can have these little spots and this patchwork, this network of green space and areas that can feel restorative, right? And
Yeah.
are helping with our environment and our communities.
It's really incredible. It really sort of embodies my feeling about sustainability. It's so multifaceted, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's hard, you're not pigeonholing anything. This is all integrated,
Yes.
and at the bottom line is you're enhancing the quality of life, right?
Yes.
It's
Right.
huge. It's huge.
And so many people, right? It's like sometimes there's this push and pull between, like, oh, urban environments can be intense to live in, the traffic and the
Yeah.
air quality and lack of nature. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. And it's better for resource management to have folks in these urban environments than sprawled out everywhere, right? So how can we make them the best, have the clean air and have transportation options, well-functioning public transit and local water and shade and all of those things. It is so possible, and there's examples of it all over the place. And it's really kind of the opportunity of our time to invest in this and prioritize this. And I feel like in LA, we have a bad rap of being divorced from nature, but I see it so differently, right? I see so much community here that comes together, and beautiful nature. I mean, we are blessed here with the oceans and the Santa Monica Mountains, the Angeles National Forest and beyond. And how can we really pay attention to that sense of place and make sure that our urban environment reflects that? It is possible. It's happening. There's investments going on. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it really is exciting. Your dad is obviously a hugely well-known environmental activist, actor, fantastic guy. I've met and known him for years. But I wanted to ask you, what was your mother's influence on you?
Yes. So my mom, she sadly passed away almost 20 years ago now, this next year. But yeah, she was amazing. She was an artist. She was a great sense of humor, definitely into the beauty of things and friendship and laughter and all of that. And, painted and did all kinds of different art. So hugely influential. She was a beautiful, beautiful woman, Ingrid Begley.
Oh, how great. How great.
Yes.
And final question.
Yes.
What do you do to keep balance in your life? Not even sure you need to do anything to have balance because you seem so fulfilled with what you're doing. But what do you do outside of work for fun?
Yeah, I love to explore the nature spots here. I love to go hiking. I love to go paddle boarding. I love to ride my bike. I love to see the city like out of a car and really
Yeah,
experience it in the neighborhoods. So all
yeah,
of that, and being with my friends, right? I'm really plugged into my neighbor group here. We're all on like a text thread together, and we all hang out and
oh,
do
neat.
stuff. And so all of those things.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, it's so nice to meet you and to talk with you and to be inspired by you. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This was really great. Thanks, Ted.
That's it. Thanks for listening to Flanigan's Ecologic. We'll see you next time.